Okay. Okay. A little echo there as I switch to... Hello everyone! Welcome to my studio. My name is Michael Markowsky. I got a new shirt in the mail today, so I'm super excited to switch things up. I've been wearing the same few shirts over and over and over again, both because I have a limited selection of shirts, and those that I do have seem to always be in our bedroom where our daughter's always just going to sleep right as I'm beginning, and I always forget to run in there. Anyway, long story short, welcome. I'm going to be showing you how to draw today, and you're going to be drawing along with me, or at least I strongly encourage you to do so. So grab your pencils and paper, and I'll take my own advice and grab out my sketchbook. And today we are going to be learning how to draw feet, like a foot. So this is, I think, probably one of the most useful exercises that you can learn how to do, because feet on their own they appear to be really difficult and these kind of strange, funny, stinky looking things. And so a lot of people just think like, wow, that's just way over my head. I don't know where to begin. So that's why just start looking around. You're going to see, especially like comic artists, illustrators, a lot of times characters are standing in tall grass or behind a bush or have gigantic boots on. All sorts of different kinds of things to disguise the foot so that they don't have to draw it, which is really funny because it's, relatively simple. Probably of all the things that you can draw, one of the most straightforward parts of the human body that there is. So I'm going to show you how to draw feet, and to do that we are also going to use our, I need to create a new one of these here for oh, you know what, I'm going to put this here and then, okay. So to do that, we are going to be using a Cantaloupe, and this is our own dedicated live Cantaloupe cam. The first of its kind. Nowhere ever before has anyone ever had a Cantaloupe cam. So we are breaking new ground today. And what do cantaloupes and feet have to do with one another? Have I lost my mind? Probably, but also because we're going to use the cantaloupe as the, sorry, I get distracted with there's so many comments coming in here. So, sorry, what does the cantaloupe and a foot have in common? Well, trying to think about funny things, but I guess they can be kind of squishy, maybe smelly if you don't clean them, but what we're going to do with the cantaloupe, and we're going to study, our warm-up drawings are going to be of the cantaloupe. Okay, so, and I hope no cantaloupes are watching right now, because I wouldn't want to injure your fellow friends. Let me see. This up here. Okay. So I'm going to cut the cantaloupe. I've just done this from imagination, and then right before class started, I asked my wife, like, would you mind running and getting a cantaloupe? And of course she's a superhero, so she went and actually ran and got a cantaloupe from the grocery store. So you can see I've cut this cantaloupe sort of like at a 45-degree angle, right? Okay, and so we've got a couple extra cantaloupe pieces, which I'm going to move and maybe putting them on my printer and scanner is not the best storage place for fresh fruit. Well, let's just put them here on the cutting board. I guess that's probably a pretty good place. Okay. And while I'm here, I'm just going to scoop out the seeds. So you'll see very shortly why we're doing this, because believe it or not, there is the structure of a cantaloupe in our feet, or at least when we're trying to draw. And I did a similar thing when we were drawing ears, and I was using an avocado, although I didn't actually get an avocado out, I just used a photograph of it. So I just thought this would be fun for a slight little change. Okay, so we have this thing here, and let's bring up the Cantaloupe cam again. Okay. Okay. So now that the Cantaloupe cam is running. Oh, there's people seeming to have some issues with YouTube. Okay, YouTube is crashing or having some issues. Not sure what's going on. Worst comes to worst, since I'm recording all this, I can always upload it again afterwards. Oh, the Cantaloupe cam. There we are. Let's move. So, the reason why I've got the Cantaloupe cam is, obviously I could draw directly from life. I could cut the cantaloupe and put it in front of me. But since you're not here with me, I thought maybe I would draw exactly what everybody else is seeing. So we're all drawing from the same angle. Okay. I've talked about different kinds of pencils and things that you can use to... there we are, nice and in focus. There we go. I always use colored pencils for our class just because that way we can see the different layers. We're not going to be doing in-depth drawings really here. We're just using this as a starting place. Okay, so let's go to a blank page in our sketchbook. And so we're just going to move that there and move this here. Okay. Okay, so let's draw some cantaloupe. So we're going to do some warm-up drawings. In fact, let's divide our sketchbook into 4. And I guess we'll keep it this angle, because we're going to try to draw the cantaloupe. Let's say this angle, let's draw it right in here. Okay. So, I'm just going to need to move. There we are. Okay. So, I'm going to look for this arc here. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Right? I'm going to draw this line in half. And it may even be easier to start with that line. Now, right now I already realize this line, which I've got here, should maybe be more like that, I guess, right? So maybe I should have done that first. Okay. Do I want to change this? Probably not, just because this is our warm-up drawing, right? So I'm not going to get too fussy about it. I'm going to draw another arc here. Now I'm not going to make a circle because we don't have a circle here. We have a slightly different shape. Let's see, I'm going to make that maybe bigger. Okay, now I'm going to draw the inside. Okay. You know, if you wanted, you could do a little bit of shading. So maybe, let's say I will use my blue pencil here. I'm just going to kind of go over and here. And let's say I'm going to just darken this side a little bit here. I wonder how the Cantaloupe holds up to the bright lights of Hollywood. Maybe there's a reason we haven't had a famous Cantaloupe make it big. Okay. So I'm also just kind of looking at this and thinking like, okay, I'm trying to this front edge, because there's looks like, so the light is kind of coming from this side. This over here is obviously much darker. Now this line in the center could be confusing maybe at first. So I'm just going to kind of make sure that I'm not stopping on that line so that it... Okay, so there's one side of the Cantaloupe. Okay. Now let's try a different angle here. I might need... Can we use the other piece of Cantaloupe to hold it up? Just shift the Cantaloupe. It's a pretty good model, this Cantaloupe, hey? Look at that. Okay, I'm just going to draw the one in the front. And so again, I'm going to imagine, so let's look for that line. So there's a pretty straight line going across. It could be tiny bit crooked, but... So this time, let's say I'm going to draw a very light line. I know you can't see it because the pencil's in the way. And then I'm going to come up, draw this bottom part. Okay, I'm going to draw this part. Okay, now this is a little bit bigger. So, draw that arc. And then I'm just going to go over top of these lines. There we go. And then let's put a little bit of shading on this one. So pretty similar to this here, I guess. And then, you know, something I didn't do last time, but I really should be doing, is thinking about like using shading and kind of putting some arcs in here to emphasize this shape, that it's curved and not flat. All right, so you see how even as I'm shading it, I'm moving my pencil in a kind of curving way. So that curve is also telling us that most of the light is kind of coming from this side. And in fact, if we want, we can even add a little bit of a shadow here. Okay. And even though I don't have this one here, let's say we could even try to imagine this shadow would be something like that, I imagine. Don't know exactly. I mean, I could just try. I could try to get it back to that same position and we could just see here. What? How close was that? I guess I got a bunch of different lights coming in different angles, but okay, anyway. What would be something different? I'd like to get... Do I have to move the Cantaloupe cam? Well, let's... Okay. So again, so let's start. This one's kind of, if I look for that angle, where am I? Somewhere kind of, I can almost try to draw a line right across the screen. Right, so kind of something like that. Okay. Maybe that arc is a little bit too round, so I'm going to soften it up a bit. Okay. And then we've got, so this is kind of the outside of the cantaloupe here. And then we've got a very narrow, right, kind of comes up and actually kind of comes down like this. So noticing that detail is actually really important. It's down here like this, and same thing, this. The inside. Okay, so I'm going to go over top of it. Okay, and then again, well, I should certainly use this blue here to shade. Shadow here off to the side. You can also see kind of, since there are a bunch of, I mean, I could draw the multiple different, we've got another shadow here, another one here, going the other way. But I think this is pretty good. You know, technically, if this, you know, what I would do, even though this is not exactly correct, I would actually take this shadow and pull it out here like this. Just for the sake of clarity. Like, let's say that I was making this a real, like a drawing for, I don't know, for my graphic novel, or for, I don't know, just an artwork study or a commission. So I would change the angle of this shadow just so that it doesn't just fall directly on this line. Just moving that shadow a little bit, because you know, coincidences in art are fine when we see them with our eyes, but when we see them like in a photograph, but when we see them in a drawing, it even though again this is exactly what it looks like, we have to kind of change it to make it look more believable sometimes. I guess I should do this when there's a little more light on that side. Now I need something to prop up my cantaloupe. I guess we'll see. Can we use another cantaloupe? Man, these cantaloupes, you know, you'd think they'd be more cooperative, but I guess I just chop up its friend here. Gosh, that is pretty similar to the one we just did, right? Just a slightly different angle. Guess we'll get another cantaloupe in here, or the other piece. Okay, let's. Okay, so let's draw this one here. Okay, so now this is going to be a little bit more tricky, I guess, because we have to try to find this line, right? The same line that we've been putting down through here, but where is that line? So take a little moment to try to find it. So it's kind of, I see it somewhere like that almost. Okay. I got this side here. Okay. And again, I'm just kind of sketching things in. And this is, you know, I'm drawing, right now this is about the density I would normally put down when I first start, is because these are searching lines. At least the way that I call them is you're just sort of, you're search to translate what your eyes see through your brain onto the page. So we want to try to sketch it out. Right, okay, and this is the interior. So you can see, it's interesting with this perspective, this now looks like a much more narrow slice of cantaloupe, right, than any of these. Right, this one looks more like a 3/4. This one looks like 3/4. This looks a little bit more has been shaved off. I think in order to make that, maybe I should darken this a little bit more. Okay. And we actually, not only do we have this, okay, I'll draw this in first. We also have just a sliver of the outside kind of peeking through there on the other side. See that? Okay. And then let's put a little bit of shading on it. I'll put on this back side. Again, even though it's actually being illuminated a little bit from the other side, I'm just going to darken it just for the sake of clarity. this shadow be? I'd have to think about that. Even though I can't really see it there, right? It sort of depends. It could... There might be a little tiny bow in it, like that, maybe. It's hard to tell because I don't really have a shadow with all those other ones. Cantaloupes in behind, but anyway. Okay, so this is a pretty good little start of some of those cantaloupes, right? So now we're going to apply this to drawing some feet. So, let me see. Oh yeah, and Heidi, I love the picture you sent of the hands. We'll get to your hand photo shortly. Oh, I gotta find some. Maybe I'll put this back down here in case anybody's working on that. Took some photos of my feet, which I know everyone's so excited to look at. Oh my goodness. Everyone's been asking me for so long, when are you going to take photographs of your feet and share them with us? Well, all of those people who've been waiting patiently for a foot show are about to get it here. Okay. So, what's the best way for me to show you these? Let's see, we need the monitor and the Cantaloupe cam. Okay, so, I'm just gonna, here's some photos of some feet, and I'm gonna find, look at that, oh, look at this beautiful foot, oh my goodness, heels, oh, look at that, beautiful. I think this is the one we want, or maybe that one. Okay, and I'm going to enlarge this so you can see that foot in all of its glory. Look at that. Okay. Okay. So how would I draw this foot that's on the screen right now? Cantaloupe juice everywhere. So you could, there's a few, without using the technique that I'm showing you, you could try doing the block-in method, and I did a whole episode a while back on how to do that, and that would be to try to draw the outer shape quickly. Another way would be to try to draw kind of the much more sophisticated try going from kind of the bones and building the flesh and muscle on fat on top of that. But the way that I think is the best way to get started and to understand the anatomy of the foot is to use the cantaloupe. So let's like I need a new one with the cantaloupe. So what I'm doing right now is I'm finding images from the web here. I'm taking images from the web and I'm doing the split screen stuff here on the this device I have called the SlingStudio. Okay, here we are. So now what I want to do is we're going to look for, there's an arch, kind of let me see, get rid of these other pieces of Cantaloupe. And I want to look for this shape here. That back a bit. That is in my foot here. So I'll show you where this shape is. This shape is something similar to this. And let me see if I bring this down further here. I guess it's not a precise science here. But this shape is in, so that shape is, here's the interior part of the cantaloupe, and then this part is the top part of the cantaloupe. So we're gonna just draw this here, and you'll start to kind of understand where is I need. Okay. So, what I'm looking for in this drawing here, maybe I'll draw this down here. So let's start out with, I'm going to draw the line on the bottom, just like when we were drawing the cantaloupe, right? And then, let's say I'm going to start here. Okay, so this is the inside of the cantaloupe. And then this is the outside of the cantaloupe. And then inside the cantaloupe, we have this shape. All right, can you see that? And so where that corresponds is, this is the heel. All right, and then this is the balls of the foot, as people might say. And then you have the toe. Or toes that are going to be kind of arrayed. Oh, YouTube's frozen? Oh, okay. Thanks a lot. Okay. So my wife just given me the report about the YouTube. Oh, what's happening here? Very strange. So I'm not sure what's going on up there, but in YouTube world, but I'm just gonna keep on going forward. So this would be another toe. All right, and there's a few more. Two, three, four, five. Got to make sure I do them properly. Okay. So here's our cantaloupe inside. We're going to draw from a few different angles. So let's go to, well, maybe I'll leave it here for a second, because I know some people weren't getting the feed for a minute. Yeah, I see, for a second there it looked like there was nobody who was watching, and then I see numbers ticking back up again. So I don't know what happened there, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe I'll just come back to my view. Now I get using the fruit, says Heidi. Yeah. So if you can see this cantaloupe shape, and we're going to draw it again from a number of different angles, it's going to make drawing the foot easier. Because what it does is it helps us see the little bit of the arch in the feet. And I have flat feet, by the way. So even though this here is not, because of the angle, this is not directly like straight on in the photograph. We see a little bit of the top of the foot here. So the foot kind of naturally kind of goes in, whether or not it's flat-footed and touches the ground entirely like this, right? So, okay. Can I fit in? I always try to use my space on my page here. So let me see here. I'll just leave that up here while I look for another image. So, let's see if I'm going to bring this one down here. Okay, so here's another foot from another angle. Maybe I'll move this up higher so that I can try to fit it right up here and you can kind of see. Okay, so let's do the same thing. We want to find that cantaloupe. And before that, let's just draw. Maybe I'll put this down a little bit lower, like right here. Okay. So this is fairly flat part of the foot, right? So we can see, let's say we'll draw this shape here. Now this is what we're looking at is kind of this part of the cantaloupe, right? We can't see anything here. So this is kind of what we're drawing right up there. Okay. So we just see the back side, the skin side of the cantaloupe. And so on this side we got the heel. You can see this kind of circle that I'm drawing here. It kind of, let's say if I put, you know, it's not like it's right here on the edge, but it kind of just overlaps on the side. And even then, you don't have to be super feet are pretty forgiving. So it's hard to go totally bonkers with feet. So you can see it kind of raises up a little bit, right? And then right on this side, we've got another kind of bump, not quite as big, right? And that side is where we have, so you can see here, we can even draw, even though the big toe in this drawing is kind of, or in the photograph is hidden, we're going to draw it nonetheless, right? So there's, let's say this here, and then there's a gap, and then we've got the big toe here. And then all the other ones, so then this is why it's helpful to think of it like a cantaloupe. And we're going to draw the top angle too. But if we think about it like this, if that's the foot and this is the big toe, The other toes kind of come, they don't go flat straight out. You know, they're on an angle, right? So they are all kind of starting from in different places, right? So then we have the next toe, even though my actual toes are a little bit longer, but for I'm going to draw what most people have, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, so usually this pinky toe kind of ends where the big pinky toe, or the big toe is, right? So you can kind of think of these as a bunch of little circles. Right, so I'm going to darken this here, and you'll see this whole thing unfold. Even though it's not really in this picture, look at these tiny little toenails here, right? The other thing on this side of the foot is there's kind of a little bit of a pad, or I'm not sure what the technical, I don't know, I always think like the pad of the foot. In this area is both sort of the, let's say the darkest point. You can kind of see it in the photograph, right? Let's say there's the light coming in from below, and then we have this kind of horizon part where it's kind of darkest, right? And then it gets lighter again. This area also, if you're standing on something, it pushes down and pushes out. And we'll do a drawing of that in a moment here. Okay, so let's say, I think I got one. Well, I'll wait here for a second while you guys are drawing that, and I'll see if I can find one from above for us. Blurry. Oh, it'll have to do. Okay. So let's go to the next page here. And let's enlarge this. Bring that up higher. So the heel is going to be in here. Okay. So let's say the first, so now that's slightly different. So look at the angle of this foot. Even though it's pointing straight forward, the foot is tapered, right? So, right, the thinnest part is the ball, and then it kind of comes outward, right? And then we've got our toes at the front, right? So again, if we think of this as like the cantaloupe, it's going to be something similar to this. Right now, there's very little of it that we would actually see because we're looking straight down, but I'll just sort of, for our sake, right, because what we're looking at in this is something kind of like that. Do you see this part of the cantaloupe? Okay. And then, so we have, this is the heel. All right, it's going to come out here. Now, in terms of the anatomy of the foot, so if this is, let's say, the width of this foot, if we divide halfway down here, then we have our big toe, and we have the whatever next toe, and then the other three fit in between there, or on the other. So you have 2 toes on this side of the halfway, and then 3 toes on the other side of the halfway. All right. So now let's take a stab at drawing these toes. So I'm going to taper them out. And again, so if this foot was straight up in the air, just kind of loose and hanging there, this would be more of a straight line. As I push my foot down onto the ground, though, this skin kind of bulges out a bit. Right, both because it's got to go somewhere, and also it helps balance us. It's like a car tire that when the weight of the car's on it, it pushes outward, right? And then if the car's flat, or the tire's flat, then it also kind of is going to get wider and wider as it pushes out, if that makes sense. Okay. And everybody's feet are different, you know, like there's some, depending on your toes, some, you know, and the shoes you're wearing, your toes might kind of curl in or over, or, you know, you got a big bunion, or I mean, who knows, you know, everyone's got different shaped feet, which again makes feet just as interesting and unique as hands, right? We can identify people's body based on their feet. Right? And feet also tell us so much about the person who's standing on them or with them. Right? Again, so we see, you know, just this little bit here, this skin is also helping to tell us that this shape is a little bit in front of this one, a little bit bigger. Okay. So maybe I'll just kind of, obviously here I've kind of amputated my whole leg here, so in terms of the angle of this original photograph, it's kind of, you know, my leg is going up and over this way, right? So you wouldn't see any of this here. So maybe I'll just quickly draw that in. And I would encourage everyone to try drawing their feet. You know, take a little bit of its, the ankle would be floating somewhere around there. I remember, God, this is probably 20 years ago. I remember backpacking around Europe with a good old friend of mine, and I did a number of sketches of my feet. You know, when we'd sit down at a coffee shop and I was wearing flip-flops, and you know, and you could see kind of the change over time of my feet getting dirtier and dirtier, and you know, just more and more tanned. I would draw the tan lines on the flip-flops and that kind of thing, and even drawing the stones that were underneath them would help us to know where we were, if we were in some old area or a new restaurant, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so there's another foot. I guess we want one. Let's do a straight one straight on from the bottom, and then we've got a few of slightly different angles. Okay. So let's do this again. So, it can be, it's hard to see this right now, but I'm going to put my pencil down here. So actually, that line of the cantaloupe, and if we're looking at the cantaloupe, it's something kind of like this, right? It's a little deceptive because the kind of the top of my foot going up towards my ankle and into my leg is going this way. So we want to use our X-ray vision and see only the bottom of the foot. So we'll draw it out so you can see it. Yeah, we'll fit 2 on this page. I'll just put this one down here. So I'm drawing this here, right? And let's draw the cantaloupe. Okay. All right, so we see this part so far. Now, again, this part of the foot is kind of coming up right that way. So we have cantaloupe like this, and here is the heel. All right, here's the toes. So the heel is kind of coming outward, like so. This bottom, you can see this line down here kind of matches up with the bottom of the heel or the foot in the photograph, right? So we have this. Here's and so we divide it in half here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a little bit like that. Okay. And you can see there's a difference between the top of the toe, right? And we see a little bit more of the, you know, the length of the toe versus underneath here. They're going to get closer to actually attaching to the bottom here. So we'll get there in a second. Okay. So, oops. Let's start with this big toe. So you can see this circle shape here. It kind of just goes, you know, here's the main part of the circle, but there's all that kind of fat that's in there that's not displaced. I'm just going to draw this rest of the heel. Okay. So we'll deal with this, how we draw this here in a moment. Let's go to this next toe. Again, I'm kind of shrinking the length of my this toe here, not because I'm ashamed of it or anything, just because I probably have a little bit longer toe in that area or that toe is longer for me than it is for kind of most people. Doesn't mean it's bad or anything, it's just I just want to try to, you know, draw for the so it is useful for the most amount of people. You can see that I've kind of jumped around here. I've kind of went and did this toe, you you know, these ones here. So sometimes rather than going in order, I kind of like to just change things up and try going and tackling different parts and kind of circling back. And I'm a big believer, I want the whole drawing to kind of develop at the very same kind of time, so I don't like it when there's just one part is finished versus the other. Okay. So the other thing with, now that we're drawing the bottom of the foot, is we have, right, there's the ball of the foot right up front, and then we have this other shape here. Right, which almost sort of looks itself like a miniature footprint, right? So you can imagine little toes right here, right? And that kind of touches up with the ball of the foot. And you can make this bigger or smaller depending on, again, just like the toe, it's going to kind of extend here as it flattens. And, okay, so I'm just going to darken this whole thing in here. How's everybody doing out there? Also, I'm curious, is that music glitching at all? Well, I remember right before today's show, as I was getting ready to go live, I was listening to it, and it seemed to kind of did stop and start, but it kind of just clicked, you know, and popped and didn't play smoothly. So I'd be curious to hear if anyone heard that, or that was just something that was happening while I was getting set up. Okay. Heidi says it's good. Okay. So I'm going to draw a few of the wrinkles on the bottom of the foot. And you can see I'm going to, yeah, actually I'm going to use my blue here. I'm just going to take these and just gently kind of curling them a little bit as they come around. Just kind of emphasize that this is rounding its way around. Right. We don't need too many of them. The other thing is, when we're drawing the bottom of the feet, it can be helpful just to, even if the feet aren't dirty, kind of just this little bit of it's sort of like just pressure, or the blood as it's, you know, because this is where you're putting most of the pressure throughout the day on these parts of the foot. I'm using a pretty dull pencil for this, but, you know, and I got flat feet, so you'd see maybe a little bit more of that than maybe you would see on other people, so. Okay. And these overlapping shapes are also really important, right? That generally the toes are always sort of, because they're crammed in our socks and then into our shoes, they're always sort of jumbled together and overlapping, and so very seldom is everything just nice and like even just with these fingers, even when you're drawing fingers, is trying to just getting those little slightly overlapping parts of the toes is also really helpful, right? Because that's also going to tell us what angle we're looking at when we're looking at these images. Okay, so let's see. I think we have time. We could probably do 2 more of these. So, just gonna keep that out, and I'm just gonna cycle through, find something. Okay, some good old foreshortening. Okay, well, this is going to be a little bit trickier, but let's do this one. Okay, bring that up bigger. Wait till you see this big foot. Okay. So, I don't know how things are going for everybody out there. Just as I'm able to keep this up here while I'm talking, I think once you understand this structure and this whole cantaloupe idea, things start getting a little bit easier. Like, it just, for me, that's how everything kind of clicked, is when I first saw that cantaloupe shape and things. And I've never heard anybody use a cantaloupe as the object to describe this, but that's the shape that I always saw, is this kind of semicircle. Okay, so now look at those. Oh my goodness, those toes need some lotion, don't they? Oh, how long? I don't know how long you guys are gonna be able to look at that foot. Okay, so let's kind of first figure out where the bottom of this cantaloupe. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be looking at the cantaloupe from, let me see, it'll be kind of like, come on. It's kind of like that. So we'd actually see, well, it's almost straight on like that for all our purposes, right? So let's draw this line. So it's a little bit crooked, right? It's not perfectly straight. And then let's draw this kind of round part of the cantaloupe and down. So the inside of the cantaloupe is always facing the inside of the, it's like the inner part of the shoe, I guess. I don't know how you would describe that. Right? So in other words, this shape here is always facing the other foot. Right? So if you're drawing 2 feet side by side, they're like this. Right? So they're never like that unless your legs were crossed, I suppose, right? Okay. So this cantaloupe, let's just for our sake, let's make it, I'm just gonna curve it out a little bit, I think, just so that, I don't know if this is gonna make things too confusing for people, but so I'm just going to draw this shape slightly different than it would actually look like in the photograph. So do you see what I've kind of done here? So I get my head out of the way. So what I'm doing is trying to create something like this around there, right? Even though that's not exactly what's in this photograph, but since we're not necessarily even just drawing the photograph, I want to sort of impart the key concepts, right? So if we go back, the heel on the very back is going to be like this, right? And then this is this pad, and then we're going to have one toe. So if let's say if this here is this arc, we have if we divide it in half, we've got one toe, 2, 3, 4. All right. So maybe I will try to read. We can, well, so what we need, so what's happening here now is we've got this, there's toes leaping forward, jumping off the page towards us. So they need to be big. We need to make these toes actually larger. So I'm going to make this toe really big. Bigger than they normally are because we want them to appear to be coming towards us. All right, so here's the first toe, big toe. Here's this other toe. Okay, so I'm gonna go over, sharpen this pencil here. So again, this is why knowing how to draw this shape, like the toes using like the cantaloupe, is super helpful, because now we can kind of draw toes in any kind of angle we want. Big head in the way. Kind of, I guess. This foot about to come down and stomp on you. So here's one angle of this. So now let's draw this kind of actually from what we see here. So I could kind of draw this again. We've got this arch. Now this time, see, it is kind of coming the other way. So we can't really see inside it at all. Okay, so that means the ball of the foot is kind of hidden. We won't see any of that. Now we actually see part of the top of the foot, and that's why we see this big toe. We divide it here. This other toe. Not even really looking at the photo, to be honest. Let's take a little bit of another look. Okay. So I'm just kind of getting more and more extreme with my foreshortening here. Okay, so let's start drawing this in here. You can even see this foreshortening of this toenail to make it look really big. So let's... So all of these kind of lines that are in front of other lines is going to help tell us that something is in front of the other. Okay. So we have this toe up here. Get these toes as they're kind of smooshed up together here. Okay, and then we've got this pad of the foot down here. Okay. Alright, so the toes coming, leaping forward towards us. In fact, I probably could have done these other ones a little bit bigger. And maybe this toe actually should be kind of coming in front of the rest of the foot a little bit more to emphasize that it's coming towards us. But sometimes you don't see that kind of thing until you kind of step back a little bit. And my face is kind of hovering pretty close to the sketchbook. Let me see. Are there any... Heidi says this might be the most difficult angle. Probably, for sure. Yeah, anything coming towards us is going to be a little bit difficult. I'm trying to think of other things. Okay, that we could... I'll keep this up here for a second. Is there another angle? That's somewhere my toes are all scrunched up. Let me see. I think, well, you know what, let me see. Should we try, should I push my luck and try one more foot drawing? I know this is similar to what we did before, but, you know, maybe we could do one final drawing for today, and we could spend just an extra few seconds kind of doing a little bit of shading on it. Okay, because we got a little, this photo's kind of nice, we got a little bit of light there. Okay, so, again, now this is hard to see because you may even want to start with, let me see where I'm going to draw it and make this kind of a bit bigger. So let's put the, I'm going to start with the heel and draw this line. Right, and then we can think about this line kind of coming down. And so I'm kind kind of going right to the pinky. It kind of bulges out a little bit here, but I'm going to keep that there. Right, and then these, even if, let's say I could use the block-in method a little bit here. Because if I say, okay, this is the outside edge of the foot, and then it seems to be kind of coming up here like this, right? So that tells us that we've got this cantaloupe in here. Alright, and then up front is the big toe. Okay. So here's the ball of the foot right up here. And then our big toe. Next toe. 3, 4, 5. Okay. So you see there's a lot of scrambling around as I'm thinking to myself. And actually this heel could probably come up. Okay, so we kind of come down. The toe. Our daughter upstairs is having some fun. She's on the she's been saying little words here and there, but she's on the verge of really becoming a big chatterbox, which is pretty exciting. Identify where these toenails are going to be. Okay. And then I think I'm ready to go in here. Also, the ankle is usually kind of right above the heel area. That kind of ball. So if you have any artwork you'd like me to take a look at, you want to send those to me now. I've got a great drawing of a hand that Heidi sent at the very end of last week's class that we're going to talk about. If there's anything else, maybe it's a drawing of a foot you've done today, or something you've been, some portraits. Oh, you know what? I just remembered I got another portrait that was sent in. Self-portrait, I think, or no, not self-portraits. Let's take a look as we get close to finishing this here. So I got two things to look at. So, and you want to look for these sort of bones or bunions or any kind of things on the foot are also important. And I can also just, maybe while I'm right here, identify where the shadow edge is going to be. Okay, so now I'm going to spend let's say, the next 4 minutes, I'm just doing a little bit of shading on this foot here. So as I do that, I'm just going to try to, as I get started, to emphasize the curvature of this foot. Same thing with these toes. So as I'm doing this, it's almost like I'm kind of carving or sanding them. Right, I'm just going in and trying to follow the shape of the foot. There's even like, look for things like I can see wrinkles here, you know, in the skin, so I can use those to help create those shapes. And then once they're kind of established in there, it's just so much easier to do the shading, because I've got like the clues as to its form kind of baked into some of those original lines. Okay, so now I'm just going to use the side of my pencil. Another thing you can do is using kind of like circles and swirls. Maybe I'm just going to use a slightly different color also here. And I'm going to squint my eyes so that I'm looking now for the darkest part of this shape here. I got 10 seconds left on my timer here. I might just continue just for another minute or so, but you know, if this was a figure drawing I was doing and the model had to get up and move, I think I'd have enough information here to kind of finish it off. I mean, ideally, once the model moves, you just kind of move on to another drawing. But sometimes, you know, you just feel like, oh, I'm so close, I just want to add a little bit more. The other thing it would be probably helpful too is if I did a little bit of shading outside of here too. And I've talked about doing that before. Okay, so I think I'm going to call it there. And while this is up here, I'm going to look for. Oops, where did that go? Okay, so I'll bring up some photos and we'll have a little chat. And once I find them. Okay, so here's the first image here. This is a drawing that Heidi sent in of her hand that she drew. And that's awesome. That is a fantastic drawing of a hand. Lots of little wonderful details that you've managed to capture here, Heidi, such as this. It makes it look, we talked about this when we were doing the foot, but this kind of the pad of the hand is kind of pushing out, which appears to me to look like your hand was like on a table and you're kind of pressing down on it. You know, or it could be just resting there. It doesn't have to be kind of like a lot of pressure, but just sort of resting there as opposed to kind of floating in the air. Kind of drawing this little edge here tells us that there's some pressure on it. I love seeing these tendons on the top of the hand, right? So again, that also drawing those helps, like, so it makes this drawing look a little bit more dynamic. You know, if you wanted to draw the hand, like, this is not like a grasping hand or a throwing hand, but it isn't a hand that's also fully at rest. So, at least the way that you've drawn it. So, if I was to draw like a hand that was like totally limp, like a dead hand, right, then I would probably avoid drawing these tendons at the top of the hand, because they tend to kind of come out when our hands are more tense, right? So if it's loose, even if technically they're there in the photograph, again, there's things you may want to emphasize or omit to kind of further your idea across, right? But you know, these, on the joints here, that skin as it bunches up and we've got those shadows in there is absolutely exquisite. And I like here in the thumb, I don't know enough about finger anatomy to know the difference between in the thumb or in the nail, what this part is versus the rest of it. But all those things just show so much attention to detail and specificity, right? It's just so fantastic. I really think this is a great drawing of a hand. And if you go back to one of the very first episodes, we did draw we traced a hand, and we used that tracing to practice shading and value and rendering. So if you've done a drawing of your hand, it would be really interesting to kind of look at those two drawings and kind of see how you've progressed and how you've kind of changed and how you're looking maybe more intensely, and you're able to pick up on those details than we were before. So really, I mean, what could I say to, I mean, it's just a tad a little bit out of focus, I think, but I mean, that's a photographic thing. Like, even all of these different slightly overlapping things also kind of helps tell me that these fingers are maybe not fully spread out, but just slightly kind of pushed, like they're up. and therefore this part of the top is technically in front of the finger, if that makes sense, right? Maybe still have the Cantaloupe cam going on here, right? So the difference between kind of a hand that's just sort of relaxed, right, versus a hand that's pressing, right, this kind of things start to kind of bulge out, and then if we have, right, we're going to start seeing some very super subtle overlapping kinds of shapes. You know, what I would suggest if you want to take this to another level would be to add a little bit of the shadows that we would see. Assuming this is a hand again on a table. Oh, which camera is that? That's the overhead camera. Okay, so batteries are starting to conk out here. So that's fantastic. Really great drawing. I'm really, really proud of you, Heidi. Great work. Okay. And then this is May Locke sent this photo, or yeah, this photo of her drawing. And let me just, this is a drawing of a 5-year-old relative from a photograph. It's her first quote-unquote freelance drawing. She says the person in the photograph is 5 years old, but somehow she appears older in the drawing. How can I keep the youthful look? I wanted to emphasize her big smile, but it's coming across as a little garish. What I like most is how I drew her hair. Managed to capture the thoughtful look in her eyes. What do you think of the shading? I find shading quite hard to do. So I deliberately did some to practice. Great. And also thank you, May. You also sent in a number of PayPal donations as well, so I really appreciate that. As have I just cashed a couple of checks that people mailed me today too. So boy, oh boy, thank you everybody for, just as a reminder, there's the PayPal link below if anybody's interested in contributing financially to the stream or to the show, or just liking and subscribing, commenting, sharing it with your friends is another great way of helping me and the channel out. And it means the more that happens, the more of these episodes I'll continue to do. Anyway, so this, you know, I think this, when I first saw the drawing, I was just like, wow, what a fantastic image. It's clear that you're drawing something, a face, not just from your imagination, but it's specific to somebody, right? And that's what I'm always wanting when I'm looking at drawings, that they're not just some generic image, but of someone. And I don't really even care who it is, because as a viewer, I have no idea who I'm looking at. So I think there's a lot of life going on in here. Like you said, I think the eyes are fantastic. They, there's just a lot of, there's a real happy kind of energy in this drawing. And it's clear that you're looking carefully and picking up, you know, the shape of the eyelids, the length of the eyebrows, you know, the way that you did the teeth and the little tiny gaps in there, right? The mole and freckle, the smile, the nose, chin, hair, like you said, even the neck, like the shape of the body. So, you know, it's on so many levels. I think this is a fantastic drawing, and I'm really happy and proud of you. To answer your question, like, why does she look older than she is in real life? Well, one of the things, and we've talked about the proportions for children's bodies, but we didn't do one for the faces of children. So maybe, possibly, next class I was thinking of doing like shoes and feet and shoes. But I also do want to do one that is of like the faces of children, so that we can, because, so long story short, what tends to happen with children is their faces kind of elongate as they get older. And you know, I've known this before, but having a daughter who turns 1 on Friday, by the way, is her, so I'm looking at her face constantly, is her, the distance, like proportionally of her face, is that the nose is quite high. And as her face is going to get bigger, it's going to kind of elongate. Because right now, the head is very circular. It's like a ball, right? And as you've known when we were drawing, it gets more oval shaped, right? So that's one thing. I would expect, if this is a 5-year-old, that this nose, instead of being down here, would be a little bit higher up. And I think that would also, that would help things a lot. It may even be enough. Like, so it, like, because I think what you're using is the structure that I showed you, so you certainly haven't done anything wrong. But what's happening is you're sort of taking the facial structure of a adult and then applying these children's features to that structure. So that's probably why you're like, everything looks like what I see, but it seems to be, it makes her look older. So that would be the technique that somebody would, like a forensic artist would use to age a child, let's say, that was abducted, right? So you would take their photograph and then you'd sort of draw their same facial features, but just elongating the face and applying them in the same place, right? And sharpening, you know, because the children's face is quite soft and round, right? So anyway, that would be one of the things. The size of the eyes, everything like that is totally fine. The other thing too is smiles and teeth are really tricky to draw. And that's why I generally encourage people when they're learning to draw to try to draw faces with mouths closed. Just because when we have the teeth, when we see teeth, it tends to kind of, if you don't pull it off exactly, it can have that, like, you know, when we see those teeth, it can look very, you know, like wild, like they can look kind of fangy, right? But I think you have done actually a pretty good job. And this kind of looks to me kind of like how children do, kind of that when they're smiling for the camera, a kind of a bit of an odd smile, like our daughter does that sometimes, which is like a super endearing part of the photo. Anyway, so long story short, what I would say is, I don't have Photoshop booted up. I can see if I can do a quick edit on this in Photoshop and see if you can see if that works. I'm just kind of open the software. So maybe a second here as this Facebook opens, because I think I'll be able to do a quick version of this. What else was I going to say? So I think the plan for the show for the next little while is, I think for the next, we're at episode 31 today, up till 40, what I'd like to do is, maybe I'll pull this over here while I get all this loaded up, is spend the next 9 sessions continuing to talk about the figure, talking about drawing, fabric and textures, clothes, any kind of, you know, glasses, that kind of stuff. And then starting in kind of mid-September, doing a whole landscape drawing course. So for people interested in learning how to sketch, Photoshop in the computer before, so let's see. So bizarre and creepy, but you see how what I've done here. So that's your original, and then this is the version that I've just kind of edited together. So the kind of a longer face versus this kind of shorter. Right, and even if I just keep on bringing this up, you can see how it starts to get kind of more and more baby-like. Like obviously the eyes would kind of change a little bit here. And it's pretty silly, but does that make sense? Like, so as you know, as I come down here, right, you can almost see her kind of like aging a little bit. Until we get to your drawing. So I think it's just again that question of just moving the nose up a little bit. So I was I'll think about what let me know in the comments what you think for next class. Should we continue drawing some feet and talk about drawing feet in shoes, because that's probably how a lot of people are going to be drawing shoes, or feet is in shoes. And or should we also look at how to draw faces of children, and just because so we can kind of really, I want to try to get as much information out there for people as possible so that they are able to do these kind of drawings with more confidence. So anyway, this has been a great class. I feel pretty happy with the drawings that we were able to do of the feet, and hopefully, you know, using our cantaloupe technique, you could start seeing the different, the basic structure of that foot around which you can build your compositions. So I think that, yeah, that takes us to the end. On next class, we'll figure out exactly, I'll decide kind of the next 24 hours exactly what we're going to do. And but any other things that you want to learn specifically about the, well, actually anything related to drawing, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say in the comments. So losing my mind a little bit. I think I'm gonna have some cantaloupe here, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon or your morning, wherever you are on this beautiful planet of ours. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.